Without further ado, let's go back to the Zoom machine and say hello to the action man, Chris Curtis, who is now 1-0 inside the octagon. Could you believe this, Chris? You're a UFC vet.
I waited so I can say I'm a UFC fighter now. I've waited so long to hear that, man. I'm still getting used to it.
Man. All right, so let me ask you. Similar question I just asked Glover, but his fight was 2 weeks ago. Are you still on cloud nine? Have you come down from what happened on Saturday?
I think I came down pretty early because I was waiting for something to go wrong. Like I was like, yeah, I did this, and I was like, oh my god, when's the other shoe going to drop? Like, what's the catch? Because the next day I'm looking around, I'm like, man, I'm waiting for something to go terribly wrong. But like, it's the shock is worn off, and now it's just kind of like that weird, surreal feeling of like, man, all right, we did it. So what comes next?
Man, and I can't wait to see what comes next. But first, let's talk about leading up to the fight. Like, you have been in this game a long time. Like I said, the highs and lows. You have fought all over the place. In the hours leading up to the fight day, how nervous were you? MSG, UFC debut, finally, big Phil Hawes, everyone, glowing. How nervous were you?
I lucked out, man. It sucks that it took so long to get here, but the benefit of that is like, man, that was my 35th fight. It felt normal to me. Like everything felt really normal. Like it felt comfortable. It felt normal. And like as I walk in the cage, as they're announcing Phil Hawes, I actually turned to my manager and I'm like, all of this feels normal. It feels like a regular fight to me. And he's like, good. Like, remember, it's just another fight. It all felt my first UFC walk, but I've made that walk 35 times as a pro now, man. So I was really lucky that it's a big moment. You're in Madison Square Garden, you got all the lights, but I'm like, man, I felt like I should be there. I didn't feel like out of my depth. I didn't feel like, the lights are too bright. I'm like, no, this is where I should be, man. I performed before. It's just another fight.
What are you thinking early on in the fight when it's not exactly going your way?
So the moment the fight starts, my first two combinations I threw, he punched completely through. And I was just like, okay, that's fine. Like, even before that, I remember touching gloves. And we touched gloves, and I looked at him, and I had the thought, like, for the first time in my life, I'm not the scary black man when I fight. And I was like, is that what that feels like? Like, oh my God. Like, I'm looking at him. That dude is huge. Like, Phil Hawes is a freaking specimen of a human. And I'm like, is this what this feels like? Like, man, he's just, it was kind of weird. I'm just, it's a big dude. And then he came out cleaner than I expected and faster than I expected. So, I had to make the decision. Like, I can try to fight this guy heads up and possibly die, or we have to wait for him to slow down. And we knew that'd kind of be the thing. Like I said, man, it's my 35th fight. Like, it's not like the first time I've been in fights to where you've been outgunned or you've been a smaller guy or the guy has advantages on you. Like, I've been in those fights before. So for me, it was just, don't panic. Like, I don't panic when I fight. I think I'm past that point now in my career. So, like, yeah, it sucks, but fighting sucks, man. You're going to get hit. You're going to be on the back foot. Sometimes it happens. So it was more so like, all right, don't panic and try to look too bad on TV.
That's not your weight class, right? Are you going to go down now?
No. Okay. I've been a welterweight for most of my career, but like this season alone, I fought at 170, I fought at 185, I fought at 205. Damn. I was actually campaigning for a heavyweight fight earlier this year. So I was like, I'll fight a heavyweight, sure.
Why?
So I bounced around everywhere. So I've done everything I possibly could up until that point to get into the UFC. I had some like successes, I won contenders, still didn't get it. So I was thinking, all right, I'm 34. I don't know if the dream's ever going to happen. So I was like, this year, I'm going to fight 10 times this year. And I'm going to try to take out everyone I possibly can to get the attention, to get signed. So I'll either get 10 wins in a row, or, maybe I walk away from this. So I'm like, okay, we had four fights, ran through guys. And they're like, all right, well, no one cares yet. So it's like, okay, if I beat a welterweight fighting a heavyweight on, it was on a Fight Pass show. I was like, well, that's got to get somebody's attention, right? So it's like, screw it, let's go. What's the worst that can happen? I lose. Like, well, they won't sign you. Well, they're not going to sign me anyway, apparently. So like, what do I have to lose? I was like, you know what? I think I can beat them. Let's go. I was going to try to fight off a heavyweight on Fight Pass. They wouldn't give it to me.
Man. So at this point, I don't have it in front of me. How many fights did you get in 2021?
This was my 5th fight.
Okay.
This is my 5th one. We had 3 others that fell through.
Okay,
wow. I had one where it fell through the day of weigh-ins. The guy got tested positive for COVID. He fell through. So we had, I would have been 8. We tried, yeah. We would have got up to 8, yeah.
I'm wondering what you're thinking. For some reason, the qualifications have changed. It seems like all you have to do these days on Contender Series is show up and you get a contract. You actually won, and I thought it was a pretty impressive. Like, are you watching these other dudes and you're like, man?
Oh, I have banged my head against the wall.
Okay.
Like, seriously, like apparently my episode was like the last one on hard mode. Then he was like, okay, well, maybe the producers are like, hey man, like you gotta like relax. Because it sucks even more. Everyone on my season, my episode who won had been signed already. So that was Kevin Holland, Montel Jackson. There were some other, who else was on there? Hardy got signed. Grant got signed. Everyone who won had been signed already, but me. And I'm just like, what did I do? And then I see guys miss weight and get signed. I see guys make decisions and get signed. So it's just like me and like my buddy Brandon Lau locker room are just like, what did we do wrong? Who did we anger? We used to laugh about it. Like, who did we anger to do this? Like, what happened?
And it became somewhat of a rallying cry for him. I feel like for whatever reason, you kind of flew under the radar a little bit more than he did. His wasn't, or his was a little more pronounced. But correct me if I'm wrong. After the Contender Series situation where you didn't get the contract, you retired from MMA, correct?
Yeah, I was like, you know what? This is it, man. Like, because at that point, think about it. What do you do to where you go in front of the boss? You had like hook, kick, and knock. There's 3 of those and like 4 of those in UFC history. If I can remember correctly, there's 4 of those in history. Hook, kick, knock out a guy. I broke my hand in the first round, mind you. The first punch I threw broke my left hand. And then I went into that fight with a torn groin.
Damn.
So but I pulled it out, like finished it and didn't get signed in front of the boss. I'm like, what do you do? Like, where do I go from here? Like, he's not going to sign me. My goal was to be in the UFC. I went, performed, and he just didn't care. So I'm like, what else is there to do? What am I spending my time doing?
Okay. Why do you come back?
I was bored. I got bored. I got really fat. So I was living with Sam Malby at the time. And after the fight.
And this is 2018, right? This is 2018.
I was living with Sam Malby. So my hand's broken. I can't do anything. I can't go home. So I'm still getting surgeries and stuff for my hand. So I'm sitting in my room at Sam Alby's house playing video games for like 14 hours a day, eating pizza. I just got really fat. It was really bad. I was fat and depressed. And I was like, okay. The moment my cast got off, I was like, I got to start working out. Like, I feel terrible. Like, even if I'm not going to fight, I got to do something. Every fighter knows when you walk away is one thing. If you walk away and go to the gym, you're going to keep fighting because it's just what you do. So I'm in there and Sam didn't want me to quit anyway. He's like, you're being stupid. Stop it. So, right. So I'm like, okay, well, what do I do next? Then it's just there. And then I'm like, okay, I got to do something. And then I get the PFL call. And at that point, I'm like, well, if the UFC won't sign me, maybe I can just have $1 million as a consolation prize. Well, that'd be nice. So it was either sit around and continue to get fat or go try to win $1 million. I was like, screw it. I can use $1 million.
So you make it to the PFL and, pretty solid, but you unfortunately lose. You lose in the semifinals, right, of the one-night tournament.
I tumbled down that ladder after the initial, it was just, man, it's like falling out of a tree. Like it went, everything that could have went wrong. And it was messed up too, because like, a part of me still wanted to go to the UFC. So when that came to the PFL, I was like, if I join PFL, my thought initially was, my hesitation was, if I fail in PFL, UFC will never take me. Then I was like, you know what? What are the chances of it? Like I fail that miserably in PFL, the UFC will never touch me. Then I just happened to fall completely down that tree after being the first fight, and it just everything that could go wrong went wrong. And like, yeah, that was rough.
Well, okay, you win your first PFL fight, then you fight Magomed Karimov. No joke. You lose a decision to him. Then you have to fight him again, the one-night tournament in October of 2019. Yeah. You lose to him again, and then. As the story goes, and I read this, Mark Ramundi wrote a great story about this for ESPN.com. You're about to eat some chicken and waffles backstage at Mandalay Bay, and Ray Sefo comes in the back and says, Magomed can't fight. You need to go out there and fight Ray Cooper. Not you need to, but like, would you like to? You put down the chicken and waffles, you go out there and fight Ray Cooper, and it doesn't go your way. Is that true? You're sitting there eating chicken and waffles?
So there's more. So it's just funny. I lose the fight with Magomed, and I'm furious with myself. Like,
you retire again, right?
yeah, I didn't fight. And I'm just like, maybe that's it for me, man. Like maybe I just don't have it. So I'm in the back having a freak out, like a massive freak out. Like John Wood and Sean Strickland are just watching me have a freak out. And they're just like, ooh, this is weird. Like every fighter knows, like when you lose a fight, especially like when you disappoint yourself, you're just like crushed. I'm like in tears, like freaking out, like hating myself. So about like 30 minutes later goes by and I'm like, okay, I'm calmed down. I'm dressed. I got dressed. I've cooled off. I'm going over to get some food. Like, okay, just relax, Chris. It's fine. Life isn't over. They had like little chicken and waffle slider burgers. So I'll have one of these. I'll feel better. This sandwich looked delicious too, which is why I hate this story. So this sandwich looked amazing. And I was like, you know what? I'll feel better. I'm a food guy. So I'm like, okay, I'm walking back to the locker room, about to take my first bite. And Ray Sefo, my coach, runs up and he's like, hey, Magomed's out. You got to go on in 5 minutes. So I'm like looking at the sandwich like, God, yeah. I still think about this sandwich to this day. It looks so good. And no one's ever like known where they came from. So I put the sandwich down. I got 5 minutes for staging. I'm on. So I'm literally walking, putting my clothes, putting shorts on, having my hands wrapped. So as I get to staging, there's like 3 minutes left. They finish wrapping my hands, my gloves go on. I have a 3-minute pad warm up, like roughly, on behind the curtain. I'm shadow boxing, trying to warm up. I had lost my mouthpiece. My mouthpiece was Sean Strickland's mouthpiece, his extra mouthpiece he had. We didn't know where my mouthpiece was, so we threw his mouthpiece in hot coffee.
Oh my God!
To soften it, and I used Sean's extra mouthpiece, because we had no idea where mine was. So we went out completely. I'm not making excuses for Ray. He was a better man that night. He got me, but we were completely cold going into that fight. It was probably the worst scenario you could have asked for to go fight someone who has bricks for hands.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it didn't go your way.
You fucking slept me.
I know. I was trying to be nice. I'm
okay with it. Ray Cooper's a good dude. He's got his family's. But it's funny. Like after the fight, for like weeks, his mom and like uncles were messaging me to make sure I was okay, talking to me. He's a good dude. He's got a good family. I'm happy for him. Like he works hard and deserves it. Like I'm over the disappointment of it now. Like he won. He's a better man that night, man. No excuses. He did it.
Did you regret taking that fight? Getting knocked out is no fun. In retrospect, you wish you said no?
No, it's my first knockout loss, which sucks. And it does mess with your confidence a little bit for him to get knocked out. But at the same time, man, what if I'd won? Right. I flashed him twice in the first round. And I flashed him on one and I dropped him on another shot in the first round. So, what if he'd won? What if I would have won?
Yeah.
Well, I hate I'd be like, oh man, I didn't take it. It's never going to have been there. So it's a fight, man. Sometimes it's hell. My fight Saturday proves sometimes one punch changes everything. No matter where you are, sometimes one punch can change everything. That night, unfortunately, that one punch wasn't mine to throw.
And so after that fight, you retire again, correctly?
Yeah, I was like, I'm done now. I was like, all right, that was weird. I was like, I'm done now. That was just a weird scenario, but I had to do it.
Okay.
I was like, it's the same night, so it doesn't count. I still count that as one retirement. You can't. It's the same night, doesn't count.
All right.
It sucks to be on somebody's highlight reel, but unfortunately, the thing is about fighting. At some point, with enough time, a long enough timeline, we all end up on somebody's highlight reel. But after that, I was like, okay, I'm done. This is it. No more. And now here we are.
And why do you come back?
I quit, and I was done. And my son's back home with in Ohio with his mom. And I was talking to him. I was on the phone with him. After everybody's already talked to me, I'm like, no, I'm done. We were talking about it, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll come back home. He's like, okay, that's good. Then he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know, something. And he's just like, well, what? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm trying to figure this out. I thought he'd be more happy. Yeah, you know what? Dad's going to come home and whatever. I'll be closer to you now. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? Because I took my first fight. My first amateur fight was 2 weeks after he was born.
Wow.
His entire life, he was at my first amateur fight. He's known me as a fighter his entire life. He's 14 now. I've always been the fighter. So he's looking at me bro, what else do you do? I've never seen you do anything else my entire life. And he's kind of heckling me, well, what are you going to do? Work at a store? I was like, I don't know, man. I picked fighting before I started fighting. I was in college. My mom's has a PhD in nursing. My dad's a doctor. I come from like a family of people who do non-physical things, and I picked this life because I loved fighting. So now I'm kind of like, what do I do, man? And my son's like, I don't know what you do. You just fight people. And he's like, well, why are you quitting? And to have like a kid ask you why you're quitting is kind of a weird feeling because like, one of my biggest regrets about fighting is that it took me away from him. I moved across country. I've been on the other side of the country for like 4 or 5 years now. So you think, he'd be happy. Dad's coming home, all of that. And he's just like, well, you're quitting. And I'm like, oh, that kind of hurts. So maybe I can't give it up. But he's right though, man. This is all I've done for 14 years. I started this with a dream. I had a goal in mind. I had a dream. And like, what message do I send him if you're like, okay, you just walk away from it when you're not done, when you have more in the tank?
Is your son Christopher?
Yeah, Christopher Dale.
Yeah. He's a freaking large kid, man. He's bigger than you. 14? I thought that kid was 21.
Yeah, so it's funny because like he's reaching that age now to where I'm in Vegas. So it's weird because I'm in Vegas now. So he's reaching that age where he grows faster than like his mom lets on. She's like, oh, Christopher's growing. I'm like, yeah, okay, I know he's growing. He's a boy. But I don't quite get how tall this boy is. And so I fly home to get him. I hadn't seen him for like 6 months. I fly home to get him. And I'm like, oh, God. He's tall. He's as tall as I am now. I probably only got about 15 pounds on him. He's 14. I'm like, what is happening? Like, why do you keep growing this like this? He's just such a massive kid.
Wow.
And it's funny because I met his mom when she was like 3 months pregnant when I was younger. And I was just like, oh, okay. So like, I adopted him. But I cut his cord when he was born. The day he was born, I cut his cord. And I always tell him, I remember holding you in my hand when I cut your cord. I was the first person to hold him after the nurse. And I was like, you barely came out of my palm. And now, like, that kid is clearly going to be like 6'4". Wow. Like 230 pounds. And I'm like, that is a very like weird feeling to have. It's like that kid's massive.
So I'm happy that you mentioned that little note about meeting his mom when she was 3 months pregnant, because I have to say, when I saw the picture of you guys together on your Instagram, you look nothing alike. So I was wondering what the story.
No,
okay.
Blonde hair, blue eyed. Yeah, it's just giant blonde hair, blue eyed. It's funny now because when he was young, he didn't understand. Kids don't understand race, so which is hilarious. So when he was young, he just thought like it never occurred to him. And then he kind of like, I think he was like 5 or 6. He kind of asked like why he's not dark yet. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we're going to be dark like you. I was like, oh, okay. So like, he asked why I was so dark. So I told him I fell into the chocolate river at Willy Wonka. And he accepted it. Like, okay, totally fine. Like, whatever. And only recently has he was 12. And he came up to me. He's like, Dad, so at school, I have friends who have mixed friends. He has mixed friends now. And he's like, I'm not going to get darker, am I? I was like, oh. Yeah. Guess we got to have that talk now. So we had that talk with him. His mom and I had that talk. And he was like, all right, I was just wondering. He's like, yeah, it wasn't getting any darker. I was just wondering what's happening.
Man, that says a lot about you. You started dating his mom when she was already pregnant, and you adopted him. I don't know if a lot of people would do that. So much respect.
No, it's still the greatest thing I've ever done. Like his mom and I are together. We've been together for a while, but she's still like my best friend. Like she's living my best. She got married, God, what years? 2 years ago, maybe? I think she got married 2 years ago. And my wedding gift to her was I bought her wedding dress.
Wow.
And like, she's like, I still go home for Christmas. I plan on being home with her and her husband, and they have another son as well, Miles. And we go home to there for Christmas. And like, she's still my absolute best friend in the world. She supported me from day one with this. So like, for me, I kind of won. Like, we realize we're much better friends than we are than in a relationship. But she's still my absolutely biggest fan and supporter and friend.
And then you come back, and then you get a Bellator opportunity, and you get COVID-19. So like, that's right. And that's the next thing.
Yeah.
And
got COVID.
At that point, you're probably thinking like, what the hell, man? I mean, PFL, UFC, now Bellator. You don't get another crack with Bellator. Why didn't they give you another shot?
I don't think we asked. Like, honestly. Okay, so my goal was always getting to UFC. Like, I was worried about PFL, like messing that chance up. Doing Bellator, I was like, you know what? I'm really broke right now. So maybe I should fight Bellator or whatever. And I was concerned that, like, if anything goes wrong or whatever, that I wouldn't get this UFC opportunity. But I was like, I decided to just do it, go with it, see what happens. And then I get COVID for the second time. So at that point, I'm thinking to myself, the universe is just telling me to stay on track, like stop taking no detours, no distractions, just stay on track, because I literally got COVID, my last COVID test on that Wednesday before we flew out. They're like, oh, by the way, you have COVID. And I was pissed because like I feel fine. Like I felt absolutely fine. Nothing's wrong with me. And I was furious. And I went home that night. I bought like a ton of pizza and junk food because they canceled my fight. And all of it tasted like shit. All it did. I was pissed off. Like, oh, this day can't get any worse. Not realizing that I lost my taste.
Right.
I mean, my taste was gone. I wake up the next day absolutely dying. Like, I spent 2 weeks on my couch, like absolutely dying. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? I just got to stay the course, because the universe is telling me to stop being distracted and like stop taking detours.
Wow. And then you finally get the UFC call, short notice, to fight Phil Hawes, and then the fight falls through. You finally get there. How do you process that?
So the worst part about that was not that it was canceled, was that I weighed in and then it was canceled. Like, had I arrived at the building and they'd been like, oh, the fight's off, I'd be like, that sucks. Like, I expect this to happen. But to get in, to weigh in, start doing everything, you're like, okay, it's happening. Like, once you weigh in, you touch that scale, it is on, right? Like, as a fighter, you're like, work is done, let's go. And then have it canceled, I was absolutely furious. Like, disbelief can't describe it. I was just like, what? I had to have killed like a pope in my past life to like be punished for this. Like, there's something had to have happened. Like, I did something terrible in a past life and I am experiencing karma. That doesn't happen to anybody else but me. Like, it really doesn't.
But as is sometimes the case in stories like these, there's a great ending, and this is not the ending, but you do get the chance to fight Phil a few weeks later, MSG. Now we all know how it ended up. You get the win, and now you're off and running. You did say in the post-fight press conference that you had that you are, quote, hilariously broke. Two words that aren't usually, put together. I mean, what does that mean? How bad is it? When I hear someone is hilariously broke, I think, they're in real trouble. Like, we're talking like living on the street, that you're clearly not.
So I'm lucky because I live with my manager. So like, okay. I'm not going to be homeless. But for me, hilariously broke for me is he's reaching that point to where there was $10 in my bank account, because like we had some expenses come up before that. And it's just, like I'm living, I don't know, you guys fighting on the regional scene, guys. Being paid well on the regional scene doesn't go as far as you think once you take out like fees, taxes, management, and all that stuff. Like, I had going into that UFC fight. The only reason I even got that 3 week that I survived those 3 weeks was because Mick Maynard took care of me for weighing in, and that saved me because I had nothing. And then after that, I was down to like $10 in my bank account. Like, I had trying to catch up on bills and stuff and keep everything afloat. So like, yeah, you go into a UFC fight with $10 in your bank account is rough. It's very rough, man.
On Saturday night at Madison Square Garden, UFC 268, you stepped into that cage with $10 to your name.
Well, I had a little bit more now I had a little bit more because of the per diem boosted me up, but minus the per diem, there was $10.
So what are we talking? Yeah. Like legit, what are we talking about? $100?
No, I had there's probably 250, 300 because they gave you like a decent amount of per diem. We didn't use a ton of it because like we all eat like hobos anyway.
Right.
But like before something that per diem, I literally had $10 in my account before that per diem hit. Wow.
And you wanted the 50K, you didn't get the 50K. How bummed were you? Because most cards you're getting the 50K for a win like that.
It's funny because like, I picked the worst card of the year to be on and win a bonus, try to win a bonus. Yeah. And like great performance, but there's just insane. Like that entire card from top to bottom was absolutely insane. So it sucks to not get a bonus, but at the same time, I'm glad Chris Barnett got one. I love that dude. Yeah. He's like the funniest, nicest dude ever. So I'm glad he grabbed that one. But it did suck because 50K would have been really, 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 really nice and let me make a couple different changes and definitely breathe a lot easier.
Do you feel like it was all worth it? Do you have regrets, or now that you're finally in? You're 1-0. Do you feel like all the struggles, everything, all the hardship was worth it?
There are definitely regrets, but it's more so that like it was definitely worth it, but there are regrets too, man, because like, once again, I don't think people like fans understand, like, to be serious about this, especially for like 10 years, how much everybody said sacrifice, but like, man, like my life has been nothing but eat, sleep, train for 10 years. And for me, it's an obsession, man. Like I train 7 days a week. I don't really take time off. It's always about, staying ready, getting better so I can have this opportunity. And I'm starting to learn now that like, you don't have to live that way. There's moderation. I'm only now just learning moderation in my training and my schedule. So there's a lot of things that I missed, man. A lot of opportunities and like time with family and friends that I've missed, like that I probably didn't have to. But over 10 years, like those things add up. So there's a lot of things that I think back on, like, man, like I wish it would have been different. I wish I would have changed my priorities a bit. But at the same time, hearing Bruce Buffer announce you is absolutely magical, man. Hearing Joe Rogan say, "Welcome to the UFC" is something I've waited years to hear. Like, I've dreamed about this moment. I've had nightmares about it, everything. So like to have it become reality, and then to beat a guy who, when everyone said he was going to steamroll you, he's going to knock you out in a round, blah, blah, blah. And then to beat that guy, just have it. I still haven't fully processed everything yet because it still seems unreal. Like it came together in the most perfect way. I couldn't have asked for a better cap to the night, honestly.
Man, you're giving me chills. You're a very easy guy to root for. There's no doubt about that. I do have to ask, a couple weeks ago, I saw Sean Strickland in your corner. A couple weeks ago, he was on my show. That is an interesting fellow. And he said, I don't know if you saw this interview, but he said a lot of interesting things about his past, about his current mindset. What is it like being friends with Sean? He's talking about wanting to kill people today. Like, I was like, wow, they let him in MSG. I'm afraid for everyone in the arena. I mean, he seems like a nice guy when you're talking to him, but then he's like so nonchalant about these really, really different thoughts. And I'm putting it mildly. What's it like being his friend?
So I laugh. I always say I've been Sean Strickland's only friend for like 5 years. Like we met like 5 years ago out at Team Quest in Temecula, California. So I've known Sean since those days. And I always laugh and say that I've been Sean's only friend for 5 years. It's just, Sean and I have lived together, we train together. Like so the thing is, like, what you see with Sean, like what he shows you is exactly how he is. Like it's not an act. It's not turned up.
I was hoping for the opposite. I was hoping you'd say.
No, this is just what he says. Like he's the opposite of Colby, where Colby's like, a calm dude and he's like putting on an act. This is just how Sean is. Like Sean will walk into a room, it's like, I'm here to sodomize all of you. And you're like, Sean, you can't, like, this is why you don't have training partners. You can't walk into a room. And then now it's like, the meal of the day is sodomy. Like, bro, you can't do it. That's not a thing. Gosh. But at the same time, man, he's just the most honest dude you'll ever run into. Where what he feels, he says. And I think as a society, we're kind of not used to people being that raw. Like we tend to have more tact about how we approach things. And Sean's a caveman. Like that dude, without fighting, he'd be in prison for sure. Because like that dude was made for a time that's long gone. Like he should have been either a Viking or like on some medieval battlefield with an axe, like throwing, like, trying to kill people. But he was born too late in history. So like fighting is the one thing that saved us from Sean, honestly. But at the end of the day, man, I tell people, like, as much as people he tends to rub people the wrong way, he's genuinely one of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet. Like, and by nice, he's not gonna be friendly to you, but like Sean would give you the shirt off his back. Like he's that guy. Like he's got a very good soul. It's just buried beyond under a whole lot of I always say like childhood trauma and rage, but like whatever that is.
Yeah.
But he's got a good heart, man. He just doesn't like to show it a lot.
All right. Fair enough. I'll take your word for it. Two last things. Why do they call you Action Man?
So I've got that name came when I was 16, actually.
Oh.
I got that name when I was 16 years old. Long story. I'll give you the short version of it. I was my friends drove me to this girl's house. I was at her house late at night and her parents were gone. Okay. And they were supposed to be keeping watch.
Yeah.
And honk if her parents came back.
Uh-oh.
16-year-old boys are clearly not on the ball, and no one gives me a warning. Front door opens, her parents are home.
Oh, no.
had the choice to either like approach, like, be approached by her father or escape, second floor of the house. So I'm like, okay, I will jump. Thinking me, I'm 16-year-old me. I'm like, okay, I can jump out this window, grab a tree branch.
Oh.
In my head, I was gonna swing down the tree branch, hit the ground, and take off. Right? I'm like 215 at the time. I jump out of this window, hit this tree branch. It's completely snaps.
Oh no!
At this point, I'm tumbling down the tree, hitting every branch on the way, hit the ground, shatter my ankle.
Oh.
But I essentially do a backflip off the last branch, shatter my ankle, hit a front roll, and come up running as her father is screaming.
Oh no!
Like, get back here, blah blah blah. So the Action Man was actually a cartoon when we were younger, to where the guy would he'd do all these crazy stunts, and he'd everything would slow down, and he'd plan his moves. And they're in the car laughing, and my buddy Eric's like, the goddamn Action Man over here. It was just the most ridiculous escape play I could have thought of. It all failed miserably. It's what happens when you watch too much TV. So from that point on, they were calling me the Action Man to make fun of my poor planning, and it's stuck since then. So since 16, I've been the Action Man.
Damn. So you shattered your ankle, and you still kept running?
Yeah, I was 16, not trying to at 16 years old, you're not trying to confront a girl's angry father.
Yeah.
So you shatter your ankle and you take off running, screw it, man. So
I was unexpected.
I'm walking around with a broken ankle, not doing anything. I don't want to tell my mom because she's like, what were you doing?
Yeah.
And all of that. So it's not a thing. So broken ankle for 3 weeks, messed up. But yeah, that's where the Action Man was born.
When do you want to return, and against who?
I actually they called me, and I was trying to fight Andre Muniz.
Okay. They called you already?
Yeah, they called me, and I was like, I'm down. Let's go. I was going to fight Andre Muniz, but I was down for it. But apparently, I don't know if they announced it yet, but some other fights fell off. So some people were shuffled around.
Okay.
And the guy that lost his fight this weekend got that fight. But I was down for that.
What date was that going to be?
The December 11th.
Damn.
And then I was so that was gone. But they were like, hey, do you want to fight this weekend? And I was like, yes, I do.
What?
So I was trying to fight this weekend because some stuff happened. I don't know if I can talk about it yet.
Okay.
But somebody else's fight fell through. And I was like, I will fight this weekend. And then that fight fell apart. So I tried to get this weekend and the 11th. Neither one of those came through.
Was that Kyle Dawkins?
Is that announced? I think
that's out there.
I was trying to get that one. I was like, I'm down. Let's go. I'll fight Kyle Dawkins. Let's go right now. And then something happened with that. I was given to somebody else or whatever. So now we're waiting. Got hopefully January.
You're crazy, man.
I was like, yeah, I'll fight January.
Holy smokes.
I was trying to get 10 fights this year, man. I'm like, let's go. Screw it.
Well, I got to say, man, what a great story. Honestly, very happy for you. It's been great to learn more about you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. And no more retirements for the foreseeable future. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. Why don't you? We just had Glover on. If he could be champ, you could be champ. All right. I can't wait.
No idea how inspiring for me that was. People are messaging me like, "Oh, you're so inspiring." I'm like, bro, Glover inspired. I'm like, that is absolutely insane. That dude is they should make a movie about him. Honestly, That's absolutely insane.
Well, thank you for coming on. Congrats on the big win, and good luck to you. We'll obviously have you on in the future. Loved having you on the show. Thank you so much, Chris.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. I was so excited when you messaged me. I was like, oh, crap. Earl Juani's texted me. This is really weird. So thank you for having me on, man. It was really cool.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris. All the best.
Thanks, man.
There he is, Chris Curtis, 1-0 now in the UFC. And now you know why he's known as Action Man.